Hello everybody, welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to go over how I set up my custom buttons on my Sony A7RV. And this custom button setup is primarily geared towards wildlife photography, landscape photography, and yeah, even portrait photography, but that's probably not the priority for this type of setup. You can still do it though for sure. And the reason I want to go over this is because these cameras are very customizable, which can be overwhelming. And so I just want to go over how I've set it up. I feel like it is the best way to set it up. It makes the camera feel like an extension of my arm. I can operate it very, very easily, even in pitch black darkness. So let's get into it. First, we're going to focus on these two buttons up here. There we go. This is the video record button and then the C2 button. We're going to start with the video record button. So for this setup, I've set the video record button to toggle between autofocus and manual focus. And that means that just with the press of a button, you can go from autofocus to manual focus and vice versa. I find this very, very useful in two specific scenarios. Number one, and you're just going to have to use your imagination. Suppose that you are pointing your camera at a bird, and the bird is it's on a branch, but there's got some limbs and leaves and twigs standing in front of the bird, and the autofocusing system just isn't getting the focus right. So what you can do is, as you're looking, you can simply just hold your finger right here. The button is within a very quick press, and now you're in manual focus if you were in autofocus previously. And you can just adjust your focus, get it right, and then boom, you take your photo of the bird and you didn't miss out on that shot. So now moving on to the button that is right next to it, C2. What that does is it allows you to pop into the frame to get a closer look when you are in manual focus or single shot autofocus. And these two buttons, they have a lot of really good synchrony with one another. So let's go back to that situation of the bird on the branch with some limbs in the way. The autofocus gets you close enough that just a quick turn of the manual focus wheel, I guess, whatever you want to call this part of the lens, you can finish the focusing job on your own. But you're also going to want to be able to quickly pop in to the frame, or if you have your your manual focus assist on, that means whenever you move your manual focus ring, it'll start to zoom in a little bit for you. Sometimes that's detrimental. So you want a way to quickly be able to either zoom in digitally, so crop into your image, or pull out, because sometimes you don't want to be in, sometimes you want to see the full thing. You just want to mess with the focus a little bit. And again, they have such great synchrony. You want to put your camera either from autofocus to manual focus or the other way around. Boom, you press that button and it's right next to the shutter button. So it's a very easy reach. So that's the top two buttons right here. And now we're going to move on to the back of the camera. Okay, now moving on to the back of the camera, we're first going to talk about the C1 buttons, or custom button 1, and it is here tucked away under the eyepiece. What I have mine set up to is to be able to turn on or off my tracking autofocus. So essentially it'll just go to its native. I don't know really what that means, but it means it's not looking for a bird or an animal or a human or an insect or anything like that. It's just regular autofocus if it is turned off, and tracking autofocus if it is turned on. Now, I usually keep it on or off when I'm out on a shoot. It really depends on the goal of my photography for the day. So if I'm going to be doing wildlife, then I'll keep it on. So I just turned it on right now. And I know it's really hard to see with all this glare, I apologize, but it's one of the things that you press it maybe once or twice during your shoot for the day, and it's not really something that you're going to be pressing all that often. So that's why I put it right here. It is a quick reach over here, but it's also really out of the way that you're not going to accidentally press it. So if you do need it on, obviously before you start, you want to check all your settings, make sure that it's on, and then you just leave it that way. It's really out of the way. You're not going to press it accidentally, like I already said, and it's probably in the most convenient spot right there, so you don't accidentally mess your settings up. Now we're going to go all the way to the other end of the camera next to the menu button, and we're going to talk about C3. This one is simple. You press it and it enables silent mode, which basically means you're using the electronic shutter. So I'll take some photos right now, and you cannot hear it because it's in silent mode. If I press it again, now you are silent mode off, and now you're using the mechanical shutter, and hopefully my microphone picks this up, but check it out. There you go. So now, why is that handy? The reason it's beneficial to have a custom button that will allow you to turn silent mode on quickly, and that's kind of the point, is you want to turn it on quickly, and you don't necessarily want to leave it on. It goes back to a wildlife photography way of thinking, and I've shot birds many times, and just the sound here, the sound of the camera shutter is enough to spook them. I mean, they're already very skittish. If you have a bird that is just sitting there in the perfect spot, and so you know you're not moving around a lot, obviously you don't want to be panning if you're doing the electronic shutter, because it's, especially on the A7R5, it is a slower reading of the sensor. But if the bird is just sitting there, and this is just an example, you want to be able to turn it on. It'll give you a higher opportunity to get the shot versus scaring the bird away and you missing out on the shot because you're a noob. Okay, moving on, we are going to talk about the C4 button. Try to show it. There it is. And what I've set mine up to do is to create a divider frame. And if I press it, I've now created a divider frame. Now you might be wondering, what the heck is a divider frame? And I know a lot of people, especially on YouTube and just overall on the internet, they don't really know what that is. Not a lot of people know about it, but I think it is one of the coolest settings that you can have, especially for landscape photography. And that's primarily a button that I have set up for landscape photography. So what is a divider frame? Essentially, I like to think of it as a bookmark in between a whole bunch of frames that you are intending on merging together in one way or another back on your computer. So what I like to do, let's say I'm about to take a panorama. I have a hard time saying that word, panorama. I'm about to take a pano. My wife's right there. I'm about to take a pano, right? So first what I do is I create a divider frame. Here's what the divider frame looks like. And then I take my series of photos, and then I create another divider frame. That way, when I get home, I will have a divider frame here at the start, all of the images I intend to merge, and then another divider frame at the end of it. It helps me to remember what frames did I want to work on and merge together. So that's beneficial, obviously, with panos, focus stacking, time blend, all sorts of things. If you're just going to be merging frames together into one, create the divider frame, and you'll save yourself some headaches later on down the road. I apologize for the slight change in scenery. It's just way too bright out there, and for this next part, I really need to show the back of the screen. So we are now working with the AEL button, and it's the one on the top right corner on the back of the camera. And this one for me is one of my favorite settings that I've come up with for this camera. Okay, so the AEL button, and there's my beautiful wife. She's drinking a little Rita. And before I tell you what it does, maybe take a guess. So now the back screen is on, right? Now, notice what happens when I move my finger across the eye cup sensor. Nothing happens. And that is totally intentional. I want to be the one that tells the camera when to go from viewing the back monitor to viewing through the viewfinder. And check it out. When you're holding the camera, your thumb is already there. I mean, your thumb does most of the work. Having it here where your thumb naturally rests, when you go and pick up your camera, it's already going to be there or really close to it. So that's why I've set my camera to finder/monitor select with this setup. Now, let me get into why. Let me tell you a true but sad story. One day, I was out with my mom and my little brother, and it was a beautiful snowy day, and it was in Washington. And we were out on a trail. We were very excited because it had just snowed a ton those few days, and we're like, hey, let's go out, look at the scenery, look at the snow, and of course, I brought my camera. And I had my 200 to 600 millimeter lens on, so I'm like, man, I hope I can get some cool photography of some birds in the snow. And that's exactly what happened, I wish. Right as we started the trail, a bald eagle swooped down and landed right in front of us. I wasn't ready for it. Why? Well, it was snowing, so that's for one. Snow fell into my eye cup and it was messing with the sensor, so I couldn't really see where the heck I was focusing. And because it was snowing, the snowfall, it was messing with the autofocus. Basically, the autofocus was, instead of capturing the eagle, it was focusing on the snowflakes that were coming down. And I missed the shot, but it was so beautiful. I was maybe 10 feet away from the eagle, and it was just right there, like standing in the trail, and then it flew up on a branch, and then again, when it was on that branch, I couldn't get it because there was snow piled in here into the eye cup. And so when I looked in there, I couldn't see because it was wet and now icy and it was messing with the sensor. So I strongly suggest, no matter what kind of photography you do, whether it's landscape, wildlife, or portraits, you want to be able to have a button that will quickly allow you to switch between the back screen, like so, or the viewfinder, like so. Don't be like me. Get the shot. Okay, so when you are at the AEL button and then you head directly west or to the left, you're gonna come to the AF on button, and let me tell you what I've set mine up to. So down here, you see this little human. He kind of looks like that one character from Big Hero 6. Anyways, you see how it is autofocus on. If I press the AF on button, it'll just cycle through the ones that I've selected. So right now it's set to human. So if I was taking portraits, actually let's test that with my wife. Boom, took a shot of her. It's in silent mode right now. So let's do that again. Beautiful. And now if I press the AF on button, it'll switch to animal. There's no animals in here. Let's see. Oh, it still detected Kayleen. She must be an animal. Okay, let's take the shot. One more time and it'll go to, I have it set to bird. Now, you can set this to as however many your camera offers, but for me, I only do those three: human, animal, and bird. Those are the most important for me, and you feel free to choose whatever the ones that you want to have on there to cycle through. Okay, so for this next one, I'm not gonna go into too much detail because I feel like most, maybe not most, but at least the ones that I know of, they have a back button autofocus. For me, it's easy. The joystick. And on these cameras is great. I know some cameras that actually don't have this function. Like for example, my wife's Fuji cameras, they don't have this function. And I feel like that's kind of a letdown. So on the Sony A7R, I think even the A7 III, A7 IV, A7R5, all the new A9 cameras and the A1 cameras, that with the joystick, when you press in, you can initiate your autofocus, which is great because sometimes you want to select your own autofocusing point so you can move the point to where you want it and then press the joystick in and it'll start tracking that point wherever you set it. So yeah, I just have it to initiate tracking autofocus for the joystick. Super easy, and I think everybody should have that. And it's a shame that some cameras don't have that. Let's give a quick demo of what I was just talking about. So this square right here, I'll make it a little easier to see. You can move it around with the joystick, and we have these two subjects. There's my lens cap right there, and then there's my beer can. So with the joystick, I can move the autofocusing point to wherever I want on the screen. So suppose I want to focus on the lens cap. So I put the autofocusing point there, and because my thumb is already on here, I can just press in. And now, boom, I am focused on the lens cap. Or vice versa, if I want to focus on the background, now I'm there, back to the, now the beer can. So you can just move it like that. Okay, now sticking with the back of the camera, the only two other things I changed is here on the scroll wheel. So for the, let me actually put this back up, it's a display so you can see more items. The scroll wheel, I have it set to, if you can see down here, it just changes your ISO value. I just scroll. Most of the time, I am on auto, or I set it, like for example, in astrophotography, I set it to a very specific one. So it's not something that I change very often. So I just leave it on auto. So for the ISO button here on the right side on the scroll wheel, when you press that, for this setup, I have it set up for my compositional line types. So there's a diagonal plus the square grid, and the very popular famous rule of thirds. And I leave that on. It helps, you know, line things up when you're taking photos. And the very last thing I have on is now on this bottom scroll wheel. So you can press, you can scroll through the wheel, or you can press each side like so. Now on the bottom, what I have it set up to is to basically do a 1.5 time crop. You go in, you just press down, and now you are 1.5 times closer. And you can tell that you are in it by this little icon down here at the bottom. Let me get that in focus. Like so. So that little icon on the screen, you're not in it, now you are in it. It's called APS-C mode essentially. And I find it very useful on a very high resolution camera like this A7RV, which has like 60 some megapixels. When you are in APS-C mode, you still are working with like 20 some megapixels after the fact. And it'll help you from having to change lenses. So for example, actually, let me talk about that. I am primarily a prime lens shooter, and the lenses that I usually always travel with are my 24mm, 35, 50, and then my wildlife lenses. So do you notice something between those three lenses, 24, 35, and 50? They are all within 1.5 times of each other. What I mean by that is this. So a 24mm lens in APS-C mode is a 36mm field of view. And basically, here's what I'm trying to say. If I am on my 24mm lens and I'm thinking, I wonder what this scene would look like if I were to have my 35mm on. Well, then I would just press the down button on the scroll wheel and it'll let me know. Oh, that's what it'll look like. And so that way, if I am in 24mm and I want to switch lenses, I can jump into 35mm field of view, and then I might think, okay, yeah, I do want to switch lenses because I like this view better, and having a 35mm lens versus a 24mm lens with APS-C mode on will look better. But also, if I'm using the 24 and I'm wondering if the 35mm is enough and I realize it's not, then I'll come to know, okay, skip the 35 and then jump straight to your 50mm lens. So very handy in the field, very handy when taking photos. And then of course, when you are taking photos of wildlife. If you are all the way zoomed in, so on my 200 to 600mm lens, if I'm at 600mm and it's still not close enough, well, when I press the down button on my camera on the scroll wheel, I go from 600mm to 900mm. Field of view equivalent. Don't freak out. But yeah, it'll help you get that extra reach without having to get any adapters or anything. And now, depending on your camera, like for example, if you're working with the A7 IV, which has 33 megapixels, I think you'll have like 12-ish, maybe 15 megapixels left over after the fact. So you are throwing away a lot of resolution, but if that's what it takes to get the shot, then I think it's worth it. Everything else on the camera, I don't really change. We have 3 dials on the top, which is these 2 right here, and then the one in the front. I don't change those, so I leave that to what the camera comes as, which is your shutter speed, your aperture, if your lenses don't have an aperture ring on it, and then your exposure compensation. I don't mess with those. I just leave it as is, and I like that you get 3. Most camera bodies only give you 2. Take that, Fuji. Anyways, if you want to try out this setup, if you happen to stumble upon this video at the very bottom of YouTube, well, I highly recommend you give my setup a shot. I have a document that you can access for free. You don't even have to give your email, and it'll walk you through all the steps on where to look on the menu, step by step, for every single setting to try this out. And what you will probably find is you'll probably adopt most of the settings that I have, but maybe switch 1 or 2 depending on what your needs are. So if you are primarily a portrait photographer, well, maybe you don't want to have a way to quickly turn on silent mode since you want to shoot primarily with the mechanical shutter. Depending on your camera, depending on what type of photography you do, so on and so forth. But yeah, I hope you like this video. Right now I'm actually working on, and it's not going well at all, so stick around to watch the other video. I am working on a video of doing some astrophotography at a place that is windy and now probably also cloudy. Hooray. If you liked the video, please subscribe to the channel and go watch my other videos that I think you will really enjoy. I've spent time photographing giant waves, beautiful scenery in Central Oregon, and a couple other things. So go watch, and I hope to see you again next time. Time to finish this.